Traditionally, at the end of October, the British motocross scene makes its way down to the resort of Weston-super-Mare for the annual beach race. 1994 saw the weekend of the 29th and 30th of October stage the 12th annual running of this event. Sponsored jointly by Finning the Caterpillar People and Dirt Bike Rider magazine. Well, we see the riders here first thing on Friday morning down at the noise testing on the beach. Early testing had actually been done outside the Tropicana, but due to complaints of noise from local residents, it was moved down onto the beach. Well, I suppose noise testing is going to be noisy anyway. Well, we see, interesting enough, rider number 999, a very appropriate number that's Lee Rudd. Now, he's the son of Terry Rudd from Terry Rudd Motorcycles. Terry Rudd is, in fact, himself a part-time fireman. As you can see, the machine there on the side is running on behalf of the Firemen's Benevolent Fund. So that's 999 there. Lee Rudd, appropriate number for that guy. Well, one of the prerequisites, of course, of noise testing is the fact that the machine is running, and rider number 717 here, Mark Jeffs, seems to have a little bit of problem getting his Kawasaki fired up. No problem, though, for 566 Paul Brownsea and his 250 Honda. Well, here's a familiar face for some of the Grand Prix guys of recent years. Ken Bell, for some time Yamaha Mitsui mechanic. Actually there with a different rider this weekend. Riding 235 is actually Jeffrey Bell. Well, 566, as I say, appears to be having no problems with his machine. A few words with the noise meter operator there. That'll soon be moving off to the Parc Fermé. Obviously, we need to make sure that the Weston Beach race is, in fact, environmentally friendly. So every machine is tested before the off. Well, Friday morning, the weather was quite bright. As you can see, the sun glaring down in the background there, and mercifully none of the rain that we were to have for the rest of the weekend. Well, we see here just outside the Tropicana, that's George Green and Clark of the course for the weekend, and one of the originating guys that put together this whole package for Weston-super-Mare. Husqvarna about 82 vintage going through there. Quite a variety of machines actually taking part in the beach race over the course of the weekend. And good morning to you, sir. Well, once they've been noise tested, they line up for the inscrutable scrutiny. As we see the helmet there being tested in the background there. Rider number 224, Daniel Miles. Worrying seconds for this. Weeks of preparation can be blown out by the fact you're not prepared your bike and it fails scrutineering properly. 598 there just in front of us, Paul Smith, wheeling his 250 Suzuki. Looking at that and the Husqvarna we saw earlier, I'd hazard a guess it's probably about 10 years age difference between those two machines. Bill Shearers, one of the scrutineers in the background there, checking things as they wheeled into the Parc Fermé. Now you can see a lot of these bikes are covered up because some of them are actually scrutineered first thing Friday morning and don't actually go out on the track till Sunday. So all sorts of Heath Robinson devices. Look at a little bit of streamlining there on the 770 machine. I'm not quite sure if he hopes to gain a little bit of speed getting down behind that on the straight. So you can see now the Parc Fermé filling up quite well. The high numbers of the riders that will be taking part, obviously on Saturday's race, so they'll be towards the front of the Parc Fermé. Well, what a sight. It would be quite interesting actually to sort of ponder on how much all those machines there are worth. Now some of the quads won't be coming out till Sunday, so well wrapped up for the unfortunately badly predicted weather over the course of the weekend. Well, of course, these are the guys that some of the solo competitors love dearly. They won't be taking part in the sidecars on the Saturday race. It's solos only on Saturday, but we're seeing them later on in action on the Sunday. Crew number 169 going through there, Martin Hagen and Jason Peter. As you can see now, a little bit of rain beginning to spot down. Now, unfortunately, this was the this heralded the weather that was going to come for the weekend. Well, 533, that's another older machine. It looks a little bit of a hybrid there. Four-stroke Honda. That's Michael Jobbins' machine, number 533. And here we see some of the sidecars, I say, covered up for the all of Saturday to try and protect them from some of the rain that's going to be coming down. Well, 310 going through there. That's Matthew Taylor riding a 125cc machine. Going to be a little bit of a power disadvantage down the straights in the 125, but obviously it's going to be a lot lighter machine to pull out. Well, race day dawns on Saturday. Bright first thing, and the riders nervously assembling outside the Parc Fermé. Now, actually, on Saturday, the first 100 riders go through. There were 298 starters, so there are, as I say, 198 of these guys we see in front of us here aren't actually going to get through, so things are a little bit nervous for them. And there's one young man getting a good view of the Parc Fermé. They're assembling outside the gates. Now, traditionally, when the gates open, there's a big rush for the riders to get to the machines. But after they've actually gone into the Parc Fermé to get the machines, it's normally at least a good 15 to 20 minutes. So all the original hiatus of riders running around to get their machines is really totally unnecessary. Just a sign of nerves, really, on the riders' part. So these last few minutes now before they're actually going to get the chance to take the machines out onto the course. So George Greenland there, clerk of the course, giving the riders their instructions about how the start's going to run off. There's been lots of criticism in many years gone past about some of the starting methods used at the Weston-super-Mare. In previous years, we've had a Parc Fermé on the outskirts of town, and there's always been a great parade of riders for about a mile and a half down through town before they come onto the beach. Well, the last few years, the promoters have seen fit to actually get the riders to push their machines down from the Parc Fermé. Well, here we see out on the start straight, one of the big spinning cat machines there actually has the green and red start lights in the bucket, and looking back towards the calm before the storm as the lanes as they go into the finishing area. So the riders now beginning to come out onto the start straight for this, the qualifying heat on Saturday for the 12th annual beach race of Weston-super-Mare. Well, what a magnificent array of riders, all solos on the Saturday, stringing themselves down out along the beach for this mass start. And any moment now, the lights will go to green, and we'll see something in the region of around about 300 riders tearing their way down this about a mile and a half, mile and three-quarter straight for the first time. And the crowd already packing the chestnut paling down there. A few last-minute adjustments. Riders anxiously waiting, though, that first red, then green light, and they'll be off for 3 hours of absolute mayhem. And the riders are off. Green light up, and they're tearing away down the beach for the first time. Well, 3 hours of absolute mayhem. Past the Finnings cat machine. Away they go. The start lights actually up in the bucket on that machine. Well, the crowd now beginning to walk away from the start down towards the beach, and we're looking down the track for the first rider to come around. And here he comes, making his way down by the seawall for the first time. Gingerly making his way over those very soft dunes, first time of asking. 7:61 it is. Malcolm Aspinall on a 500cc Kawasaki. Now, always, of course, 500cc machines do have that little bit of a power advantage on the first lap down that straight. However, once things actually get running, then any power advantage that the 500cc machine has is somewhat lost a little bit by the fact it weighs a little bit more as it has to plough its way through the soft sand. So, leading group of riders going through. Now you can see part of the Finnings display in the background there. We'll talk more about that later. Well, there's a rider going through with number 71 in his back, quite confusing that, because obviously these are the higher numbers actually in the qualifying race. I'd hazard a guess that 71 isn't his actual race number. We'll probably catch up with him later on. Meanwhile, Malcolm Aspinall it was who led on his first lap. So taking full advantage of that 500cc Kawasaki. Well, in fact, here's that gentleman we saw earlier on. It's not actually 71, it's 631. That's Jamie Wilson, 250cc Yamaha. Well, 578 going through there, Dave Ward. Now look at this hardy band of marshals here. But these guys can't really get round on these first few laps without the help of the marshals. Now, red and black shirts. Keep an eye out for some of those, because those are actually the Cornish riders. They tend to wear those red and black rugby shirts. So now the field beginning to make its way around this first lap. It's quite surprising actually at Weston Beach race, the number of guys that don't actually make it round just one lap. Oh, thank you very much. Neatly past the marshals there. You can see almost a sheer drop down the other side. Well, there's one of those 125s. Obviously a 125 at a little bit of a power disadvantage down the straight. Let's say once they start going through this deep sand, the fact that it's a lot lighter bike makes it easier to pull in and out of the deep stuff. Well, making short work of that dune, up and away down the other side. Well, 6H8, that sounds like the resonating bark of the four-stroke. Oh, and here's one of Team Marigold. 782, a long-time tradition at Weston Beach race, the Marigold Riders, so named because of the Marigold gloves that stuck to their helmets. Ah, as if by magic, another one appears. You hear the throaty bark of a four-stroke going through there in the background. 661, Pete Legg going through. Had a gentleman a little bit of a wee there for the camera, his hair flowing behind his helmet there. Now you can see this early stage in the race, although a lot of wet out on the course, there's no actual rain coming down on the riders, which was to be a great advantage. You can see a lot of them still managing to keep their goggles on in these early stages of the race, although a lot of them already discarded them. It only takes about 5 seconds to sit behind a rider on a dune and you get absolutely filled in. As you can see the sand spinning away off his rear wheel there. Well, imagine what it's like coming into a dune behind one of those riders. So goggles being worn on the arm. And yet again another one of those Marigold riders. Well, they seem to get everywhere. Bright pink helmet to match. So footing their way through. A lot of these riders are already becoming somewhat reminiscent of some sort of monster from 50,000 Fathoms, covered totally from head to foot with sand, unrecognisable. And of course, before they go into lap scoring, you'll find that most of them actually have their number plates wide. A nice little wheelie for the camera, and one wonders if he actually did it on purpose because the camera was there. 611, Eric Aspinall. 502 looking very relaxed. Now he's wearing his coat obviously to keep warm there, but it's amazing actually how hot some of these riders are going to get around this course over the 3 hours. All sorts of gear being worn. We have actually in previous years had riders going around with all sorts of fancy dress outfits. I remember one year about 3 or 4 years ago we actually had Ed the Duck competing. The unfortunate thing was that the majority of Ed the Duck's head actually was stuck on above his helmet. Must have been okay for the first half hour, but the next 2.5 must have been sheer torture for that rider. Well, 508, Shane Williams going through there. And yet another one of those Cornish riders, 691, Richard Penhaligon, a nice Cornish name there. Now look at the size of that dune in the background as the riders go down. You can see the riders away down that long straight. Something in the region of about 1 3/4 miles along the straight this year. Well, all variety of machines there. We've seen a 500 motocrosser go through. And there's a 4-stroke enduro machine. Actually, Road League, you can see the number plate on the back of that one. So notice a nice relaxed feet up style, a nice bin liner being worn there. 678 Paul Golding, hails from the Northampton region. You can see some of these riders taking rather easy lines through these ruts. Now see how deep some of these ruts are getting. Already we're looking at the early stages of Saturday's race. Nice and gently does it. 504 there, footing his way through. Well, if this was trials, he'd actually get a Robert Wainwright. That was. If this was trials, he'd be getting a 3 on that one, I would have thought. Well, 666 coming through there. Looks like he's got some sort of windscreen on his bike. That's Sean Cousins hoping to get a little bit of an advantage down the straight. Oh, very athletic. You see some of the riders still full of beans jumping over the dunes there. And others like this gentleman footing his way through. So again, quite a mixture of machines. We've seen enduro machines. Look at that one, a rather large looking excess fuel tank on the front there, hoping obviously to do the race as long as he can with that tank on the front. Another one of those KDX enduro machines, followed by a Kawasaki motocross machine. Well, 661 Pete Legg, appropriately enough, legging his way through the sand there. Well, 721 and 723 having a little bit of a scrap together there. No, it's actually impossible unless you're in about the top 15 or 20 or so to actually keep record of where you are during the course of the race. Now, obviously, we've got the Weston Beach race. They actually have computer-controlled lap scoring to keep an eye on those top positions. But obviously the commentators on the day can only actually keep up with what they got on the screens, which is normally about the top 10. So therefore the people in the pits really have virtually no way, apart from a little bit of guesswork, as to how their riders are getting on. But meanwhile, we know how this rider's getting on. 6:31, Jamie Wilson. Without number 71 in his back once more. We talked about him earlier on. He's actually leading the race at this stage. And you can see a little bit of a difference in paces as the riders go through that tight chicane there. 5:92, Mark Popham. Now there was a time when you could actually say, looking at that machine just going through there, was in fact a Kawasaki in purple plastic. There was a time when you could say that Hondas were red, Yamahas were white, Suzukis were yellow and Kawasaki's were green, but in this colourful day and age with British motocross, unfortunately that's not quite so. All sorts of aftermarket plastics are available to customise these machines into whatever colour they like. And you can see a variety of different lines being taken on. It's very gingerly done there by that gentleman on his Enduro machine. A little waspish thing there of a 125 as it goes past. Unmistakable engine sound. Well, again, another composite purple and green Kawasaki there. 729 David Clark. And a man with a bin liner. The unmistakable Rask with a 500cc Honda going through. Gentleman wearing his glasses. No, that's a man with a parrot on his shoulder. And Team Marigold went through once more. Now, one of those riders there cutting his way through with one of the shirts is actually worn by the Motocross of the Nations squad, the victorious Motocross of the Nations squad in 1994. Now, over the course of the weekend, there are a team of riders from the Halstred Motorcycle Club actually riding for charity. I believe there are 5 of them out there wearing those Union Jack shirts. We can hear some machine roaring away in the background there, obviously some sort of throttle stuck somewhere. .624 going through there, Eric Rippingale. And 710 an XR Honda. Right, back out on the straight now. Oh dear, number 770 come to grief there. 675 Ian Durston on his 500cc Kawasaki. A variety of styles been exhibited by the riders as they go past. And notice how they never seem to go in a straight line, snaking all over the place. A little bit of wind obviously going down the beach. Some of it obviously from the tow from the bikes, but a little bit of it coming in off the sea as well. Well, one advantage of having an enduro machine is you've got a little bit of a headlight unit to hide behind. There we are, heads up racing, looking across the beach for each other. And it's at moments like these that the riders wish they hadn't thrown their goggles away. Well, off the beach, that long 1 3/4 straight, back down into the mile once more. And there goes Wiley Coyote. Good grief. 673 going through there. That's Martin Russell. Now that's actually a 250 Red Rocket Honda. So that machine of 79-80 vintage. And no parking meters, fortunate Western Super there for this young man. And yet another set of those Wiley Coyote ears in the background there. Oh, gently does it there for rider number 530, Royston Hopcroft. Not so gently does it there for rider 671 there, Adrian Tay. As you can see, some of these corners beginning to dig out just a tad. 570, 125, battling his way through there. Now you can see, just look by the side of those dunes how much they've worn down. You can see where the chestnut paling is next time they go past there. The fencing with the sand on the other side marking the original level of the track, and you can see how it gets mown down. Well, here we actually have Goofy coming up towards us. 542 Mark Charlotte, that is Goofy. Well, a variety of lines being shown out of this corner here. And another one of those bin bags without which no rider would be complete. You can see how the water beginning to come across the course, making things a little bit gooey for some of the riders. .732 going through there, Andrew Parr. And that gentleman well wrapped up against the cold. 671, Adrian Toy once more. I believe that's the guy we saw earlier on part himself at the bottom of the due. And once more, one of the team at Marigold Riders goes through. 652, Mark Maudsley. Out of the pegs for the camera. As soon as he's out of camera sight, back on the saddle once more. 573, Ray Miller going through. 626, Nathan Jones. So famous, they named a song after him. And there's that gentleman, Sean Cousins, once more with his windscreen, obviously useful to him down the straight. As I say, as they come through lap scoring, you see the numbers are scrupulously cleaned off before they go through lap scoring, but the riders, not so. So the well-fitting goggles going past us. Oh, well, this gentleman certainly making sure that the lap scorers notice him. Now, this isn't actually the finish, it just, the riders as they come through, they look so tired, it's actually as if they feel that they finished. 594, Peter Wilson. Well, if you imagine what those finish lanes got like with every rider going through 2 lanes during the course of this 3-hour race, 298 starters I believe there were, and the winner only actually eventually finished, I believe, did 19 laps. So try and work out the possibilities of that, and you can imagine just how deeply rutted it actually got through those finish lanes. I say, a remarkable job done by the lap scorers, the computer team backed up by manual lap scorers on the day. .631, so race leader through once more, Jamie Wilson. And there's that man again once more, 666. Sean Cousins, one of our wily coyotes, goes through. Well, we're now about 2 hours into the race, and some of the riders looking a little bit second-hand. 763 there. Mr. Adams cruising up on the pegs around the back of the pits, that final loop, and they go back out once more onto that long start straight. Well, that's another way to carry your cans in the background there. And one of the marshals trying to keep order in the pits. .562, a quick wash down the radiators, trying to get some of that sand out of the radiators. Ian Cole there trying to have a drink through his helmet. Well, as Andy Warhol said, everybody's famous for a day, and Ian Cole famous there for having a drink. Good morning to you, sir. 719, Clyde Hodgson going through, taking time to wait for the camera. Now they come out the back of the pits once more onto that long 1 3/4 straight. .717, Mark Jeffs joins in the fray once more. Well, as I said earlier on Saturday, only 100 of these competitors actually going through. So only a third of the field going through, 2/3 of them going to be unlucky. 785 there, a rather excellent looking skeleton suit tattooed on the outside of his clothing. 593, Adrian Salt. So the riders coming round in that short, straight section round the back of the pits. 509, Scott Williams going through. Nice line out in the corner. A little bit of a slow section missed before they that great hiatus as they charge you once more down the straight. Well, in the pits there, 5:31, having a little bit of a problem with his machine. And another one of those Cornish riders going past once more. 6:66, Sean Cousins got half of his windscreen now missing. And it's those Wile E. Coyote years again. Oh dear me, one gentleman pushing his bike in the pits, 714, Mark Bates, obviously having problems. And here we are, the anxious scenes in the pits. Here's the pit corner just outside of the... As you can see, tucking in tight there with the KTM Enduro machine. A little throb of a four-stroke going through there. The last slow section before they get out onto the main straight. 5:44, Thomas Mann going through. Four-stroke KTM. 6:31, race leader Jamie Wilson once more takes that left-hander, flying out on the straight he goes. So in around about the closing stages of the race now. Now look how deep some of those ruts are getting, and that poor gentleman there getting absolutely stuffed in with sand when the guy's in front of him. 5:40, Glenn Broderick. Well, just look how these dunes have cut down during the course of the racing. Now just look, here comes our race leader once more, 6:31, Jamie Wilson. I was saying, just look how the sand has cut up on the face of those. Look at that, wheel marks going everywhere. Very stylish there from our race leader. Going around towards the back of the trophy corner once more, heading back towards the pits. Round the pit loop and then the start of yet another lap. A little bit of a gentleman's excuse me going on here. The marshals do a superb job over the course of the weekend, warning fallen riders, or rather warning riders of fallen riders. 5:32, Mark Joss. 5:50, Ewan Caldwell. Methinks from Welsh Wales. Well, 6:60, Justin McClavey going through there, one of the early leaders of the race. Taking full advantage of that 500 Honda powering down the straight. Spent about the first 3 or 4 laps of the race in around about 3rd place. That looks to be one of those riders from the Halstead Club and those unforgettable 94 Motocross Destination shirts. There's one gentleman retrieving his bike once more from the sand. And race leader 6:31, Jamie Wilson back with us again. Look at this, we're in the closing stage of the race here and still looking very active up on the pegs. Hustling that machine round the corner. Through the deep stuff. Back up on the pegs once more. Away he goes, passing riders every few yards or so, around the back of the Tropicana, once more towards the pit area. I'll say some of these riders at the end are looking on a rather second hand, making their way through the lap scoring. As I said earlier on about how deeply rough they are, look at that. And the volunteers there cleaning them as they come in, making sure the lap scorers can read those numbers. And well, they might wipe them down as well, otherwise you'll never be able to read them. Here's a man that's going to get himself noticed, and then one of those Marigold competitors, 5:24, Clive Brand. .598, Paul Smith, legging his way up past the lap scorers once more. 6:91, another one of those Cornish shirts, Richard Penhaligon, as I say, a nice Cornish name. I say we're in the closing stage of the race. We're actually looking for the race leader at the moment. And there he is, 6:31, and George Greenland, clerk of the course, puts out the checkered flag. So a race win there for 6:31, Jamie Wilson. So after Saturday, we had 100 of the 298 starters go through. Race winner 6:31, Jamie Wilson. Well, Sunday morning, bright and early, and bright being the operative word once more. The sun started with us first thing in the morning. Here we are in the trade area. Lots of things to keep the spectators amused. Various machines there. There was actually an auto jumble there as well. And they're saying that this is obviously first thing on the Sunday morning before this area got really packed. Something in the region of 30,000 spectators actually watched the 12th annual beach race on the Sunday. Quite a selection of stands around the trade areas here. Brian Davis from Dirt Wheels, we can see there his stand. The riders meanwhile assembling via the Parc Ferme. Nervous as ever, you can see most of them stood around with their arms folded across the chest ashore sign of tension. They're waiting now before they start moving the bikes down a short part in front of Tropicana from the Parc Ferme. There's that team from Halstead I was talking about earlier on. Now, as I say, quite a lot of charity involvement at Weston Supermare as the riders pushing their bikes down to the beach. Talking about the charities, Finney and the Caterpillar people actually raised in excess of £20,000. Superb to the Southwest Children's Hospice.
The further south, should we say, the Caterpillar? No, further north actually.
So here we see the riders pushing their bikes on a short walk from the Parc Ferme down towards the beach, being let out one at a time.
Urgent as well. I believe so, yeah. Very urgent. We put it out 3 or 4 times, so well, we still got the big cats out.
And here we are down on the beach, the riders beginning to mass for the start. Let's say 3 hours once more of absolute mayhem. Look at that great pack of riders beginning to assemble all sorts of limbering up gun. Of course, they sit there for about 5 minutes or so and actually gets quite choking amongst all those fumes. Again, one of those distinctive red and black Cornish rider shirts. And we've seen there one of the Team Cat competitors there, 27 just in the bottom corner of the picture. That's Paul Edmondson's machine, riding for Finning's Team Cat. Stepped in the last moment to replace Tony Marshall and Daniel Smith, who unfortunately were injured in a practice crash early during the week. So the riders now begin to mass for this start. Well, obviously there, Paul Edmondson, 125cc World Enduro Champion, looking down anxiously at the bike, some sort of problem there. Now the riders trying to keep the goggles off whenever possible to the last moment to prevent them from misting up. Well, Edmondson there, concern in the Cat camp. Obviously some sort of problem with the carburetor there. Looking around over his shoulder towards the start line. Obviously some jet or something blocked. Not really the Simon place to do that though, just before the start of the beach race with all that sand around as well. Anxious moments there for Paul Edmondson. You can see behind him 266 on the Cat shirt, and also that Steve Liddington, the other member of the Cat team, riding number 14 I believe. 14 of course because he finished 14 the previous year. Well, it looks like they're away. No, the marshal just getting out of the way there. You can see the lights down on the beach as they're coming down for this mass start. Always at Weston Supermare, very difficult to keep control of this start. Look at that, something in the region of just over 400 riders, and in fact they're away. You can see the green lights in the background there. Marshall trying to keep some sort of order, and look at this. Charging down that straight they go. Well, what a magnificent sight. Something in the region around about 400 riders there, all solos we can see so far, but there are sidecars and quads taking part in this beach race on the Sunday. Now, there's been a change in the last couple of years. There used to be at the far end of the straight a massive great dune, which actually acts as like a version, a Western Supermare version of the M25. You used to get solid roadblock there, back for about 100 yards as riders try to cram over it. So what they've done the last couple of years, they've actually got into a long series of sweeping chicane type bends and corners, and you can see the riders going backwards and forwards there of a series of about 8 or 9 turns. But the idea is that it actually strings them out a bit more before they get to the first dunes. Basically, though, what it means in reality is the big blocks that are typical of Western Supermare beach race don't actually occur till about halfway around the first lap. And we can see already one rider out in front. Looks to be a 500cc machine, judging by the yellow background to the plate. And that actually looks like one of the Cat shirts there, back in about 3rd place. Well, as this rider comes towards us, we begin to pick out his number. And it's rider number 114, Zach Bunell, riding the Sandeford's Honda. Winner of Southport Beach Race about 3 weeks ago, so not really a stranger to beach racing. And second place man, that looked to be, that's one of the cat shirts, so that must be on a 500cc Kawasaki. That's Andy Gilbert, 266. Well, look at that, as he goes past a 15-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. Well, already I think actually Zach Bunell more than broken out something in the region of about 6 or 7 times 15 as he'd gone down the straight. So Zach Bunell out in front, 114. Second place man, the 266, Andy Gilbert. 133 getting behind him. They come to the first of these dunes. Now this is where the action begins to hold up. Well, the rider, the marshal actually saying, well, that's the one you've got to go over, lads. So I think they can actually see that from where they are at the moment. Well, this is good stuff for the opening lap. Coming through thick and fast at the moment. Well, I don't think it's going to remain that way for long. In fact, first of our riders get stuck. Number 7 there, Chris Payne, been manhandled over by the marshals. They say some of these riders would never get round the course if it weren't for the sterling services of the marshals on a day. And you see the machine's not actually boiling up, it's just steam off the motors as they come through the sand. Well, incredible. Look, already someone getting stuck in that corner down there. 25 there playing, Dean Warren playing close attention to the camera there as he goes past. Oh, another gentleman coming to join us. And that's 67 Barry Wilson. Now just look at the sand flying off those rear wheels. Absolute mayhem out there. And there goes one of the Team Marigold riders going through. Well, look at this. Well, we've been watching here for maybe, what, 30, 35 seconds, and we saw the race leader, Bunell, go through. No problem, the first dozen or so riders leaping straight through it, and look at this already. 113, David Bradley there caught up in the rush. One time, or several times actually, 125cc AMCA champion. And look at this. And this is, as I say, they've had those long series of winding out chicanes early on in the race, and now we've watched them come all the way down those, and now the whole field virtually comes to a complete halt. Well, good morning to you, sir. Number 71 there parking his bike up on its rear end. Well, some of the bravest marshals in the world on top of these dunes at Weston Beach Race. So there we go, we've seen it now in the space of about, what, 1 minute 20 seconds from flat out to completely out at the moment. So back out the front of the race, 114, Zach Bunell goes through. Second place man, 26, Alan Clark. 149, that's Craig Prattley from the Chase Ab Suzuki team. 266, Andy Gilbert, so Gilbert goes through in third place at the end of the first lap. Number 9 going through there, Tommy Drysdale. 1 is Rob Meek, winner of last year's beach race at Western Supermare. Well, now you can see it around about the second lap here. Number 7, Chris Payne going through. 5 is Andrew Williams. And a nice little Husaberg 4-stroke machine going through there. 43, Richard Carter. Now you can see, oh, here we are. Oh, back at the hole once more. Well, let's have a look how we're getting on. Well, we're not getting on at all, actually, at the moment. Well, there's 71, and we saw him get stuck there earlier on. That's 71, Edward Spear, trying to lift his 490cc Yamaha out of that. And look at that, we've actually got a lake down the bottom there, and there's a few quads and sidecars in there waiting to come over. The quad there looks to be firmly beached down the bottom, waving there. Hello there, Mum. Got my quad stuck here. Imagine the postcards, having a lovely time, wish you were here, basically, to pull me out. 646 going through one of the trail bike class. Now the edges, they're all looking at the top of the dune, they're waiting. Well, a Submariner there by the looks of things. Well, that is well and truly stuck, that machine. Well, I don't think we'll be seeing much more of that gentleman during the course of the day. Now, of course, this is one of the things about Sunday. The weather did rain quite a lot. We're still going past that Kawasaki stuck in that, well, I suppose it's a sand hole. It's more like mud though in this weather. I say, unfortunately, on Sunday we weren't blessed with as clement weather as we were on the Saturday. Well, this is the opening lap. Well, as soon as we get a number on that bike, we'll find out who that poor miscreant wretch was stuck there on the opening lap. 364 quad going through there. Well, you can see the field now beginning to thin out quite rapidly, actually, as they get stuck on some of these early obstacles. Now the last place you want to stop is at the bottom of one of the dunes. Now you see the marshal trying a very brave attempt there to stop the riders from ploughing into each other. Now such a varied terrain here. 749 trying to plough his way through the deep mire there. 570 Stephen Speed. 646 Nibs Kellett. On a rather ancient looking enduro machine there, with even with a oval plastic side plates. I haven't seen those around the motocross circuits for quite a few years now. Well, a very steep section there. Well, riders coming in, taking their very varied lines into this part here. But as I guess we're just about to see a whole conglomeration of riders once more. A rather difficult obstacle. In fact, here they come, making their way through that mire. And one gentleman who shall remain nameless, basically because we can't see his numbers. 316 David Cockhill. Oh, and here we are, back on the hill once more. 238 David Kick getting out of the way there. Oh, marvellous for somebody trying very hard to bury themselves as deeply as possible in the sand. Makes you wonder how that rider's getting on. We saw earlier on. Up to his seat he was, trying to pull it out. 524, Clive Brand. Another one of those four-stroke KTM machines. All making very short and neat work of that wet section there. Well, as you can see, even in these early stages of the race, conditions were absolutely atrocious out on the track. Obviously, towards the end of October, we're going to expect some wet weather, but there really was some rain that weekend. 93, Philip Mowat going through, making his way out the big dune. 102, Tim Hunt. Husqvarna Enduro machine. Oh, and there's a sidecar, Williams and Zembruski. 157, wearing what looked like Prince Charles' ears there. Well, bang goes my chance for knighthood. 628, Mr. Davis legged his way through the sand there. You can see that massive great ruck dugout there. 625, Andy Rook, with a somewhat, looks like an afterthought of Marigold there. Race leader Zach Bunell goes through once more. And that looks to be Andy Gilbert, 266 on the cap machine. We caught a glimpse of there behind him. Meanwhile, back at the hill. Oh, well, at least they seem to be, if they're not going through quickly, they're sort of going through fairly easily. Being assisted, of course, by those marshals. Oh dear. Well, what did you do last weekend, son? Well, I went to Weston Supermare and did a spot of digging on the beach. And this is what you call a spot of digging. Look at that. Well, in the camera shot there, we got something in the region, I'd say about 150 riders there. So about a third of the field there, crying up little heap. And that looks to be one of the cat machines there. Distinctive shirt there. I'd hazard a guess it's Andy Gilbert if it's the green machine. 315 going through in front of us, that's Alan Fisher. 266, there's Andy Gilbert, appropriately enough going past the Finning Cat display in the background. Finning Caterpillar, of course, one of the main sponsors of the Weston Beach race. They've been involved in the beach race for something like about 8 years now. Over the course of the weekend, we were talking actually with Keith Darsh, who was the Southwest area manager for Fittings, and he was saying that they moved something in the region of 65,000 tonnes of sand to create that course. They started on the 19th of October, some 10 days before the qualifying heats, and he said they'll be working until about the following Wednesday to put all the sand back again. Something in the region of about 1,600 gallons of diesel used in the construction of the course, and it'll be something like about another 1,200 or so gallons of diesel used actually to take it down. In fact, the cost of bringing the machines down from Cannock, where their base is, up on the A5 there, was something in the region of £6,000. Some really magnificent machines and great response. Well, there's one of their teams, Steve Liddington, number 14, finished 14th last year, and in the early stages of the race quite well up. We see number 1, Rob Meek, the race winner from 1993, going through. Number 5 there, Andrew Williams. I say the lower numbers of the riders are actually their finishing positions in last year's Weston Beach race. 593, Adrian Salt. Number 7 there is Chris Payne. Oh dear me. And here come the four-wheel brigade. 295 going through, that's Alan Rogers. And a quad somewhat sideways on. In fact, looks to be caught in the fence there. Well, one of the unfortunate things about the quads, well, they do tend to get caught so much often in the jams, is the fact that they've got a low ground clearance. Given the low ground weight of their tyres, if they're going over soft sand or if they tackle a during their own, they're fine. But once they hit one of those ruts, 62, Michael Sadler going through, 125, 26, Alan Clark. Now, he was third on the first lap. And you see a great mixture of styles from these riders, some of them up on the pegs, I was going to say, attacking the sand, and that gentleman there certainly attacking the sand. Well, I was going to say, if we were talking about sponsors, it'd be nice to be sponsored to have a pound for every crash. Well, there's one gentleman there well and truly stuck in his machine. And this is par for the course of the weekend, really. Riders all over the place. .670 Neil Chalice. Ah, that gentleman's still stuck there. 289 Steve Clark there, rorting through in his Honda. And you can just see what the sidecars do to the track as they come round here. You imagine really when you've got one driving wheel at the back, the sidecar will act like a brake all the time, which is why the sidecars do get stuck so easily, unfortunately, on the big dunes. Actually, it took 21 minutes and 45 seconds for the first of the sidecar crews to come round on the first lap. Well, you can see now the riders coming through fairly steadily, so the log jam we saw earlier on is obviously beginning to clear itself. There's 71, one of the riders we saw caught up in that log jam earlier on. And meanwhile, that gentleman's still trying unsuccessfully, shall we say, to start his quad. 379 going through on the quad. 176, Ashley and Martin Woolers on their sidecar outfits. Well, 12 is Jason Fraser. As I said from the numbers earlier on, he finished in 12th place last year. 18 is Dave Hammond, fighting his 250 Honda through the mire there. .51 Jeff Lewis, momentarily lifting his hand off the bar there. Number 8 is Chris Watts. Oh, there one gentleman gulping for air there with half his numbers missing. Oh, 271, Eddie Smith there having a very interesting moment with Mama. 178, the Pelling and Kemp crew there. Well, I was just say going past us, but actually getting stuck in the mire once more. 27, well, Paul Edmondson, after a lot of problems early on with that carburetor, missed the start. Actually didn't join in until about 5 minutes or so after the start of the race. That Honda's still there. 279, well and truly stuck in the mire. It's great the way he's just stood there looking at the bike. I think he heard us then, actually. So once more, as I say, at Weston so often happens, you get a jam cleared and it begins to move itself a little way down the beach. .725, Jeremy Moss. And the sidecar still circulating freely now. Well, me and my big mouth, they were circulating freely. Bit of three-wheeled action there from one of the quads. Zach Bunell goes through once more, 1-1 for our race leader, 27. There's Paul Edmondson on the Cat Gas. Oh dear, you don't want to stay there for too long, young man. 282, Adrian Beaver going through. Paul and Etheridge going through, 172 on the outfit. And well, Paul Edmondson up on the pegs there, looking quite fit at the moment. Got a lot of ground to make up though. And there's his teammate, 266, Andy Gilbert. Well, coming to the corner there, 631, that's Jamie Wilson. That's actually the winner of the Saturday's race. He actually came round in 9th place on the opening lap of Sunday's race, but unfortunately faded about halfway through the proceedings. Number 9, Tommy Drysdale, a bit of a beach race specialist going through. Does particularly well up in the northern part of the country, around about the Southport area at their race. Of course, the winner of that last race at Southport, 114, Zach Bunell, leading this race at the moment. Number 7, Chris Payne, one of the early group of leaders going through once more. Well, just look at the state of that track. Water, water everywhere. You wouldn't really want to drink a drop of that. Andy Gilbert once more aviating the big 500 Kawasaki. 151, Malcolm Clive Shipley. Rob Meek going through there. Now Rob Meek, we saw him on the leaderboard, appeared about halfway through this halfway stage of the race on the leaderboard, and really got into contention in the closing stages, but we'll talk more about that later. Well, the sidecars begin to circulate freely now. 121, Tim Maskell. 11 is Richard Clayton. And just look at the size of that crowd. It's funny how the crowd always gather around the boggy bits. Obviously the most spectacular. .254, Nicholas Marsh going through there, having a word with the wise. Obviously I'd hazard a guess that he actually knows that Marshall there. Well, the riders threading their way in and out. 247, Mark Hook, chasing that little group there. Oh, and yes, another rider comes to grief. As you can see in the puddles of rain teeming down still, all the spectators behind with their umbrellas well and truly fixed up. 67, Barry Wilson, that's that gentleman we saw trying to attack the camera earlier on. Oh, dear me. Right, the sidecar mutating in the background there. 246 is Mr. Bellingham on the big wheel Yamaha. We've seen it every year for about the last 5 or 6 years, in fact, probably more. 284, Martin Tuckey. And a somewhat older Suzuki. Well, once more you can see the Finnings Cat display in the background there. Very fittingly enough, they decided to build a massive great obstacle opposite their hospitality suite, making sure that they were in the thick of the action. and they remain so over the course of the weekend. A whole variety of lines being taken around this corner. Oh, and covering the cameraman in a little bit of the conditions there as well. Well, 113. David Bradley coming to join us there. I say more renowned for his exploits in the AMCA and the 125 championships, and also in the IMBA series. This gentleman doing a little bit of digging once more, going to retrieve his bike from Marlis. Paul Edmondson still threading his way through the field. Well, a marvellous attempt there from Paul Edmondson after that handicap with the problems with his carburettor at the start. He actually changed the carburettor and he pulled all the way through the field and began to appear on the leaderboard around about the 2.5 hour stage. Showing the true grit that world champions are made of, and obviously not wanting to let down the Cats team at all. Well, really deep stuff here, the riders fighting their way through this. With the unfortunate... Oh dear me. This gentleman retrieved himself from the mire there. Actually being sat on by your own quad, not the sort of thing you want to go. Rob Meek, number 1, going through. .589, Ryan Vose. 266 there, Andy Gilbert. And the Cat team making short work of that hill on the 500 Kawasaki, passing the fallen riders. No problem at all, very distinctive uniform they're wearing there. And this gentleman again making easy work. .53, that was Murray Thompson. And now just looking down the beach there, you can get an idea of the size of the crowd. 30,000 spectators turn up on Sunday to watch this 12th annual Weston Beach race. A superb turnout, really, considering that the weather forecast of the weekend, which in fact lived up to itself for a change, was absolutely atrocious. Well, a little bit of coming together riders there. Well, I'm glad they could laugh about it anyway. If that happened in the 15-minute motocross race, there would have been probably fisticuffs in the pits afterwards, but never mind. It's all part of the fun at Weston Beach race. Any chance of anybody doing a complete lap without falling off has got to be pretty slim, really. Oh, and once more, one of the sidecars comes up. 6:31 going through in front of us there. Jamie Wilson, one of the few times we've actually, well, the only time I believe we've actually seen him on the deck. And 53 coming in to get in on the action. Looking down towards the lap scoring pit, and look at those ruts that are beginning to dig out there. Well, later on in the race, actually, those ruts did cause a little bit of drama because Zach Bunell had only just been passed by Rob Meek, was about 8 seconds down him and got caught in one of those ruts as they came up towards the lap scoring and lost something in the region of 50 seconds, allowing Meek to pull a clear from him. Well, what a quagmire of a corner. Looking something like the Ypres Salient on the Somme there. Something reminiscent of 1916. 377, ploughing his way down the beach there. One of the quads getting well down over the back of the bike. Gentleman taking time to examine something in his hand as he's away down the straight. Meanwhile, back on the infield, you can see one of those magnificent Finnish Cat machines in the background. Going round, they actually helped later on to dig out a couple of riders whose bikes were submerged literally up to the gunnels in the sand. .238, David Vick going through. Well, 163, the crew of Keith and David George, sedately making their way around that rather tricky corner, keeping out the really deep stuff. 2:37 Gary Holland. Now the unfortunate thing about Weston Beach race, what is a perfect berm on one lap, the next lap become an absolute bottomless pit. And you can see the riders circumnavigating and making sure they keep out of the really deep holes as they go around that corner. Well, a burger bar in the background. I bet a few of these competitors wish they got a chance to stop there and had a bite to eat. Well, I've actually seen riders stopping virtually for their lunch in the pit area. A lot of the riders from Saturday are so pleased the 100 qualifiers to go through. They're not too bothered about what goes on Sunday. It's just the taking part that counts. A bit of the Olympic spirit there. It's not the winning, it's the taking part. And these gentlemen here on the Psycho outfit wish that they could take part as well. 1 on 4, meanwhile, Bunell going through once more. .596 Tony Neary there, 38 Del Dawson, and one gentleman there with half his numbers missing. And there's a Psycho outfit with its half its number missing. 681 Michael Pinney, all the way from Ansell in sunny Bedfordshire. 222 Lee Shepherd. You can see the track beginning to cut up quite roughly there. Well, 3:57, one of the leading quads, John Elliott, goes through there. And believe it or not, 1:06 there, that's Matt Bates, Team Green's training instructor. Well, the leaderboard at the end of the first hour looked like this then. 114, Zach Bunell on the Sanford Honda was out in front. Second place man was 118, Brian Wheeler on the Dual Sport KTM. Third place was 520, Tim Carter. Fourth was Chase Ab Suzuki of Craig Prattley. Fifth was Rob Meek, last year's winner. Sixth was number 5, Andy Williams. Seventh was Team Cats 266, Andy Gilbert. Eighth was Team Green Kawasaki's 107, Neil Prince. Ninth was Enduro Expert 31, AD Smith. And in 10th place was rider number 14, Steve Liddington, the other member of the Cat team. Is Rodney Brooks riding a 250 Chase Ab Suzuki, expired with his clutch on the first lap. And Mark Eastwood we saw going through the first lap in something like about 125th place. So those were notable glitches on the first hour. Well, as we started the second hour, the leadership changed hands momentarily as Bunell pitted. Well, here we see Mark Eastwood said he was having problems, kept on ploughing his way through the race, and in fact, in the second hour, turned in the fastest lap of the day in about 8 minutes 30. 164, Beresford and Watmore going through. Well, 73, Mark Slade cutting back on the inside. Lots of little battles going on throughout the course of the 3-hour race. 123, David Dunn on the 125. 41 is Glenn Whittash. Now you see them here, they're coming round the bend as they head down towards the start straight. Looking back the corner of the pits. Now Craig Prattley, 149 on the Chase Ab Suzuki, was managing only 3 laps, actually on a tank full, so that was a tremendous handicap for him, having to come in to refuel the bike on every 3 laps. Let's say Bunell was going around about 5, possibly 6 laps on a tank. So here we see once more the conditions abysmal out on the track. The spectators with all their umbrellas up. As I said, I didn't stop 30,000 of them making their way down to watch the race. Oh, all sorts of angles been taken at the corners here. Number 9, Tommy Drysdale, a bit of a sand specialist there, taking that inside line and almost submerging himself in a rut. Well, this is the top part of the course. Earlier on we saw the opening stages, the riders streaming through here about 5 or 6 abreast. Obviously, as the race begins to pan out a little bit, the riders are a little bit more single file. 43, Richard Carter going through there. 108, Paul Chiappa. Up in the dunes, 687, Alan Jenkins, one of those Cornish riders with those famous red and black shirts, as is Jason Fraser, number 12. So quite a mix of machines there. Fairly modern 250 Yamaha going through. 28 Nigel Smith in his Honda 609. Anthony Griffiths a rather 3 or 4-year-old KTM. Well, Rob Meek slowly but steadily made his way up the leaderboard. Plenty of experience at Weston, Rob Meek. So here you see again the riders coming around that tight corner of the pits, and the rain teeming down, lots of water on the track now. Now one of the problems also was that the race actually started at 11:17 and the high tide was due at 2:17, which is the exact minute that the race stopped. So as you'll see, as the race goes on, the tide coming further and further up the beach, and as the riders go down the straight, they're actually beginning to get into the breakwaters. Here we go through that bit of a morass and a quagmire on the pit turn. Oh dear me, you can't park there. Now, had that happened in one of the earlier laps, he would ended up with about another 5 or 6 blokes actually welded to his machine. So the riders once more round that tight pit turn, spraying mud everywhere. You don't really want to get stuck behind one of those sidecar outfits as they make their way down the beach. They leave a little bit of a bow wave behind them. 362, John Whitney going through, one of the quad riders. And 32, Gavin Hickman, taking a very tight line on the corner there and suffering through as well, deep into the mire. And John Elliott once more, keeping going on that quad. Oh, nice to see a nice little freight train of 3 and 4 wheelers going through there, keeping going. Oh dear me. Well, there's the 126 machine of Ricky Priest, firmly sucked into the western sand. Well, meanwhile, back in the pits, a few bits and pieces being sorted out here for riders. So most of the riders making at least 3, if not 4 pit stops during the course of the race. And of course, a lot of the, shall we say, fun riders from Saturday making a few more pit stops than that. Well, you can just see how deep that mire is out there. Brace of quads back with us once more. 234, John Cooper. 85 is Keith Staines on that old KTM. That's 631 going through there. 298 all the way from Jersey and Channel Islands. That was Bruce Dingle. And the 190 up there really having to dig themselves out. 59, Owen Chiswell, finding a little bit of a deep line round that corner there. And it's one of those almost red and black shirts. Richard Penhaligon goes through once more. Well, as you can see, these dunes really were knocked down towards the later stages of the race. Well, that's one way. 325, Steve Crawford and his passenger there trying to get their sidecar crew going once more. And you can see difficult, even a little 125 there, 112 Nigel Brooks. Back down on pit bend and just look at that rain come down. Doesn't stop Stuart Lee Ames smiling though. 268 as he went round the corner there, seemed to be enjoying himself. He must be mad. Well, another one of our sidecar crews coming into the picture here. And there's Zach Bunell, our race leader, back with us once more. Although you can only recognise him by the numbers, any chance of seeing colour on his uniform have long since gone. Away once more down that long 1 3/4 mile straight. Well, a yellow flag out, there's an unusual occurrence in this race. Number 4, David Campbell, from there in Scotland. A long journey down for David. 27, Paul Edmondson, Team Cats, as I say, making his way up to the leaderboard. fighting every inch of his way, and I say after that poor start really had to work hard to make up the ground. 266 Team Cats Andy Gilbert on the Kawasaki, still plowing his way steadfastly through the field also. Well, Marshall stood there with the yellow flag, and it's really getting quite deep on that corner there. 1, 2, 3 David Dunn, and number 8 Chris Watts. Back into the pits once more. 312 Jason Gillett coming for refueling. Excuse me, I'll come in to refuel. 13 Richard Bunny makes his way back out on the track. There's one right there, looks as if his race is run. That's the sidecar crew actually. You see the machine in the background there. Oh dear me. I don't quite think he meant to do that. 73 Mark Slade going steady there, making his way past a few riders on that bend, looking to take the outside line. Now the inside line, not really the line you want there, as you can see number 141 there showing us. '19 Simon Delaney, one of the Chase Ab Suzuki riders out. On a 125, a little bit of a handicap today. 246 Bevis Bellingham once more on the big wheel Yamaha. 309 Greg Mills, Team Green Machine. Well, you can imagine with a quad when you've got 4 wheels to get stuck here, it could be a problem. Now, this chap's only got 1 wheel stuck and he's still having to enlist somebody else's help to get him out of there. And it doesn't help, they're getting absolutely filled in by everybody as they go past. Well, keep plugging at it. 357 John Elliott on the quad leaderboard going through there. Well, number 18 David Hammond, really plastered with mud there. Rogers and Stone 152 from Cornwall. Marvellous advert for Sun in Cornwall. You see they've actually got those red and black shirts, and as has 520 Tim Carter. They really are getting about these red and black Cornwall shirts. Getting a nice way through the rut there. A little bit deep, but managing to cope with it okay. Tommy Drysdale, another one of these sand specialists. Now he's taking that inside line once more. Oh, great, we've got the quad back on its wheels once more now. All we've got to do is get the thing started. Yeah, looks to be okay. And whatever he had on the top of his helmet has long since disappeared under the western sand. And we're on the way once more. And there's Paul Emerson, 27, flicking through the shot momentarily. 266 teammate Andy Gilbert. That distinctive Cats race gear. .650 is Darren Paul, looking a little bit worse for wear. Well, look at the quagmire they're coming through here. Unbelievable. .352, Martin Air on a quad. There's Zach Bunell once more, 114, making his way in yet again past the lap scoring. So making their way through the mire, speed limit 15 miles an hour, as if. Oh, and a faller yet again. On for Zach Bunell, still our race leader. Rob Meek, number 1, had pulled his way up through the leaderboard, 2 minutes back in 2nd place. In 3rd place was this man, number 4, David Campbell, 1 minute and 6 seconds behind Meek. 4th place man was 266 Andy Gilbert. 5th place was Enduro rider 3180 Smith. He was followed by Neil Prince and then Steve Liddington from the Cats team. Well, hard charger through the pack was Mark Eastwood, number 2, who after such a poor start had fought his way up onto 10th place. And also this man, number 27, Paul Emerson from the Cat team, lost about 5 or 10 minutes on the start with those carburetor problems. He was carving his way through the field, and although a lap down on the leaders, was up circulating in around about 20th spot. Well, into the closing stages of the race, as you can see, the rain really teeming down. Conditions couldn't really have been much worse for the competitors out there. About 2.5 hours gone, and they're right up to the axles in it. This is what Weston's all about, though, really. The riders going out there, and really it is a bit of a battle to get through to the finish. And a lot of them, certainly the riders that qualified from Saturday, are more than pleased just to get through to the finish. 7:23 we see going through there. It's one of those riders actually come through from Saturday's heat. One of our quad riders going through. As you can see the water now out on the track. As I mentioned earlier, the tide encroaching up on the beach. And as they were going down the straight, they're actually beginning to go through the breakwaters. High tides, as I say, scheduled to finish dead on the finishing minutes of the race. So the field actually strung out over something like about 10 laps, the main leading bunch of contenders. Number 5, Andy Williams, going through there on the Kawasaki, making his way past that, well, not really a fallen, just shall we say a stuck quad rider. I mean, a little bit of a tea party out there trying to get the machines off the track. 589 Ryan Vose, 19 Simon Delaney, two of the Chase Sam Suzuki team members going through the shot almost together. Well, that young man sedately coming up once more. And as I say, the race actually reaches the closing stages. 309 is Greg Mills. 180 looking relatively clean. I think they must have stopped at some time in the pits for a bit of a wash down, because it really is a lot muddier than that, or should we say sandier than that out on the track. Although to be quite honest, with all that water around, it does tend to look more like mud than sand. Well, as you can see, the riders coming out through the lap scoring tunnels there back towards the Tropicana really were deep ruts. 266 Andy Gilbert meanwhile keeping going around about third place. Unell's Team Cat member Steve Liddington goes down into the puddle, helping, well, I'm not quite sure that was a helping hand or a helping shove from the marshal. David Campbell circulating well in the closing stages. And this man, Zach Bunell, leading for so long, caught by Rob Meek with about 2 laps to go. We see he got his machine caught here. At this point, he was only 8 seconds behind Meek. But unfortunately, he and Rob Meek on the lap following this both got stuck. Rob Meek whiskered a plug. And Zach Bunell got caught in a deeper rut than this one. Took him about 2 or 3 minutes to get out. And would you believe it, he let 266, Mr. Consistency, Andy Gilbert through. And Andy Gilbert, Team Cat, takes the checkered flag from George Greenland. An elated Cat crew there, leaping onto the track, pick him up. Once again, the end of the 12th annual Weston Beach race. Zach Bunell at 114 here led for 16 of the 20 laps until he succumbed to that fateful Western sand. Rob Meek left it to the closing stages, got past Bunell with 2 laps to go, then suffered problems with a whiskered plug. So the man, Mr. Consistency himself, 266, Andy Gilbert, brought off a fitting result for the Finnings Caterpillar team for the weekend. The Finning Cat team, superb performance. Paul Edmondson started off about 5 minutes behind everybody else and actually fought his way up to the field to finish 11th. The other member of their team, Steve Liddington, worked his way up to 5th spot, and of course the overall winner was number 266, Andy Gilbert. Looking down the leaderboard, second place was number 4, David Campbell, making his journey from Erin, Scotland all the way worthwhile. Third was 114, Zach Bunell. Fourth was Enduro Expert, 31, A.D. Smith. In 5th place was Liddington. In 6th place was last year's winner, riding number 1, Rob Meek. In 7th spot was 520, Tim Carter. 8th was 130, Paul Maguire. 9th was another beach race specialist, number 9, Tommy Drysdale. And 10th was 149, Chase Ab Suzuki's Craig Prattley. Moving on to the sidecars, a win on 13 laps for crew 193, Gary Bowden and Paul Manning. They were followed by 192 the Sheards, also on 13 laps, and then by Rogers and Stone, crew 152. The quads saw the race win go to 361, Andy Grimes on 13 laps. 357, John Elliott finished 11 laps, and Andrew Gold, 370, finished in 3rd spot, also on 11 laps. Another successful beach race at Weston Supermare. The organisers Enduro Promotions would like to thank the following: Finning Limited, Castrol, Dirt Bike Rider Magazine, Motorsport Clothing of Weston Supermare, Credley Kawasaki, Mitsui Machinery Sales UK Limited, Woodspring District Council, Avon Constabulary, Wessex Centre ACU Clubs, the marshals, the spectators for turning out in their thousands, and last but by no means least, the competitors that make this weekend so worthwhile for many.